Right, so we want to learn how arrays work. I'm going to start off by assuming that you know absolutely nothing about arrays. If you do, then maybe this will just be a nice little catch-up, help you consolidate your knowledge. And if you don't know what's going on, then you know that you won't be left anywhere behind. So first off, I just want to talk about a normal variable. You might want to be wondering, why on earth does he have Excel open? And that's because I'm going to use it. I like it as a tool for demonstrating arrays. I'm certainly not going to be writing code in it, although you can with macros, but that is so off topic that I'm going to stop right now. So we might look at something like this, and I might see a line of code that says int num equals 1. Alrighty, and basically what this does is it's going to create a variable. We've told it to be an int, that's the integer data type, which I'm sure you know. We've said our variable is going to be called num, and we have initialized it. We've given it a first value of 1. And what happens is in memory somewhere, we create a little block, and we call that block num. And this block is only going to store integers. If you tried to say something like num equals 2.3, the program would crash because this block is very specifically about storing integers. And what happens is we put a 1 in there. And that's cool. That's how things work. That's how variables work. That's the abstraction. That's all you need to know. So before I get on to actually creating an array, I think it's useful to understand why we need arrays. So I'm going to be creating a new project. I advise you to follow along. There are some things you don't need to, but if you haven't done how to create a project, I'm going to click over here. I can either go File, New Project. You can see it's got that little yellow icon with the plus, or I can click over there. If you've got an old version of NetBeans, you won't have Java with Maven, Java with Gradle, Java with Ant. It'll say Java Project. If you've got one of the new ones, you definitely want Ant. If you ever want to know how you can remember that, it's because you have no idea what a Maven is, you have no idea what a Gradle is, but you do know what an Ant is. And then just a straightforward Java application, and I'm going to call this learning arrays. I always like to untick create main class because it's often not very helpful, the thing it creates. It's not an issue if you do leave it ticked, if you've already clicked OK, but I'm going to untick mine and click finish. At this point, I have this thing called learning arrays. I'm going to open up source packages. I can just start creating classes, but it always bugs me here where it says, warning, it is highly recommended that you do not place Java classes in the default package. This has got absolutely nothing to do with exams. Nobody who marks your exam or test is ever going to know whether you used a package or not, but I'm going to use one. It's also a nice way to split things up, and I'm going to create a Java package, and I'm just going to call it learning arrays. Right. And now I'm going to create a new file. I advise that you don't follow along because it's going to be a very long bit of programming code, and it's going to be utterly useless for you to write out, but really, really good for you to see. The diligent person is thinking, I'm going to follow on anyway. You are wasting your time. Do not do it. So I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to call it Y arrays. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to solve a problem without using arrays. And let's say that problem is code a program to enter 10 numbers and then display the numbers that are above average. Okay, and this is not something until you've entered all 10 numbers, you don't know what numbers are above average. Because for example, even if my numbers are, so even if these are my 10 numbers, so 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, I've entered 9. You probably think I'm going to type another one. You're wrong. My number is minus 1,000. The average of this, and you don't need, fortunately Excel is not in your exam, so do not stress about that at all. But the average of this is minus 99.1. So I shouldn't if I was doing the program, I shouldn't display any of those numbers. And I didn't know that until the very last number. So I need some way to be able to store every number I enter. And I'm going to do it the wrong way, the slow way, the incredibly bad way. And after this, you're going to understand exactly why we want arrays. So I'm going to create a new method, a main method. I am lazy. I'm going to use the shortcut, which is PSVM, push tab, and I've created a main method. If you're not on NetBeans, you just have to type this out by hand. Although, as I said, don't code this specific program. Right, I need to remember all 10 numbers. So I need 10 variables. Int num1, int num2. This is going to get ludicrously long, so I would never, ever, ever put my variables next to each other like this. But just because I'm doing such a stupid thing in the first place, I'll put them here. Otherwise, this program's never going to fit on a screen. But I would never, ever, ever recommend that you do this. Int num9, int num10. So I have 10 numbers, and what a pain it is. I type fast, but what a pain it is having to type 10 numbers out. Even if you're copying and pasting, you have to go in and change all the numbers. And this is really the real pain. So I'm now going to say num1 equals j option pane dot show inputs dialog. Enter the number. Actually, you know what? Let's just be specific. Let's say enter number 1. And it's going to complain to me because, first off, I haven't imported my my J option pane. So import javax, that's Java extended, .swing, .star. And it should immediately stop complaining about the J option pane. Now it's going to complain because the J option pane gives me a string, but I'm trying to put it into an integer. So I need some way to turn an integer into a string, and hopefully you've done this. But you go integer dot parse int. If you don't know how to spell parse int, fortunately Java's quite nice. You can double click it. Because I should have done the parse int before the J option pane, so it's now done that. I don't really want that S there. I actually want the whole J option pane in there. Close my bracket, and there we go. Unfortunately, I'm not done. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now, my word, this is painful. Okay, now I need to calculate the average. So let's go int sum equals num1 plus num2 plus num3. I'm going to stop wasting your time. You unfortunately don't have a speed up, except you do. It's called arrays. And I've now found that, and I can say double average equals sum divided by 10.0. In case you're wondering why I'm dividing by 10.0, I want my average to have decimal places, which means I need my calculation to give me a double. If I go sum divided by 10, sum is an integer, 10 is also an integer, and it's going to basically throw away the decimals. So take a look. I'm going to right click on white space anywhere and choose run file. I'm going to go with over here what I had in my Excel. We know it should be minus 99.1. So I'm going to enter in a whole bunch of ones. And then for my final one, negative 1,000. And like an idiot, I did not print out my average. So SOUT, and I'm just going to print the average is plus AVG. It is important to give nice output. So anyway, let's try that again. Let's run file. Minus 1,000, and I'm expecting minus 99.1. But what I get is minus 99.0, and that's because it's taken sum divided by 10. That gives me minus 99.1, and it is then throwing away the decimal to be minus 99, and then, because it's an integer, and then it's trying to put it into a double, so it puts a point naught on. Not helpful. Take a look what happens when I go point naught. So let's run the file. And there we go. I now have the correct average. Awesome. Okay. I'm not going to waste your time, and I'm going to have to go through now and do an if with every single one of these numbers and see if it's smaller than the average, and then print it, and it's just going to take forever. Waste your time, so I am not going to do that. But hopefully you can see why this is not a great method. Next thing is, let's say you give your program to your customer, and your customer says that is awesome, but I actually need them to enter 1,000 numbers. Okay, it is going to take you a long time. So you have to create 990 variables. You're going to have to add 990 variables. And then, I mean, this line won't change, except you'd be dividing by 1,000. Neither will this line, but my word, is that a lot of work. So there are better ways to do it. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to create a basic array. So I'll say average, or let's say array average. If you called yours average array, because I said average first, it does not matter. Alrighty. So when I first started programming, I really had to kind of teach myself. And I was doing stuff like this, and I was just thinking, it'd be so convenient. Like if you remember a for loop, hopefully you remember for loops. You've got this little I that counts up all the time. And wouldn't it be awesome if I could put that I onto the end of the variable name? And then I don't have to type out all the numbers over and over and over and over again. And it turns out you can with arrays. So I think before we start programming, I'm going to switch back over to Excel. We had a look what happens with num. Now let's say I make an array. So I might say int, and I'm going to call it nums, because it's more than one number, so I'm making it plural, and I put square brackets. The square brackets tell Java that I'm creating an array equals new int square brackets 10. Okay, a little bit of a weird way of doing this out. It doesn't really correspond to anything. I'm not creating integer objects because there's no int objects. I'm creating an array of ints. And what happens over here is, again, it goes to memory. How much? I may want to make these just a little bit thinner. There we go. Rightio. Okay, so I'm going to create 10 columns. And the reason I'm doing 10 columns, because over here I said, give me 10 blocks. If I'd said new int 20, then I'd want 20 blocks. If I'd said new int 5, I'd want 5 blocks. So I'm going to create 10 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Really no need for you to be doing this, but pay attention. I'm going to call this nums. And over here, these blocks all have labels as well. And for reasons that I'm not going to go into, but it's not important, the first block is naught. You might have heard that computers count from naught. That's what they're talking about. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have 10 blocks, and they are 0 to 9. Okay, so it's always, the last block is always one less than that. So if I had new int 100, my last block would be number 99, and that's because we're including 0. Right, and now I can say things. So I could say something like this. I could say nums 6 equals 34. Okay, and so I'm going to go to nums, and I'm going to go to block 6, all the way over here, and put a 34 in. Maybe I say nums 10 equals 99. I start over here. There is no 10, program crashes. So, and you'll get, in fact, what's called an index out of bounds exception. This little number here inside the square brackets is the index. It's because nums has got a whole bunch of blocks. Which block am I talking about? There is no block 10. Okay? Remember, because we start at 0, in this instance, the biggest block is in fact 9. So let's fix this up. And let's say nums 3 equals 99. So I put a 99 in 3. And then I can read values. I'm not going to waste your time and put values in for everything else, but I could say something like this. I could say int sum equals nums 6 plus nums 3. And what happens when the computer runs this is it says, well, what is nums 6? So it goes to nums, goes to the 6th block, and I get 34. What is nums 3? It goes to nums, goes to the 3rd block, and it gets 99. So it becomes 34 plus 99. So the answer to this is 133. Okay, forgive me here. I'm actually going to change this. I'm going to say nums 1 equals num 6 plus num 3. So it's going to take that 133. So in an assignment statement, and the equals is an assignment statement, whatever is on the right gets put into the left. So it's going to take, so num 6 plus num 3 we've worked out is 133. So it's going to take 133 and it's going to put it into the block labeled 1. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you have some conception of how arrays work. It creates this big thing here with a whole bunch of blocks, so it gives it one name, but then there's a whole bunch of offsets, and you can put actual numbers in there inside the square brackets. So let's go back to our program, and we want to do the same thing again. I want to code a program that is going to allow me to enter 10 numbers and display all of the ones that are above average. But this time we're going to use arrays, and so this time it'd be a nice idea to follow along. Let's create a main method. I probably type faster than you. So, feel free, let me type a line or two, pause it, type your own stuff. So we're going to create an array. So I'm going to go int, because it's an array of integers, nums. The square brackets tell Java I want an array, equals new int. It's an integer array, and I want it to be 10 big. Okay. So now let's, currently there is nothing in my array when I did that. So in the same way that, before I typed these lines of instructions here, these blocks were blank. They are. They're also blank when you create that. A little bit of a lie, because integers default to 0. So in reality, before I do anything, it actually fills these all with zeros, but don't worry about that too much. Or at all, in fact. No need to stress. So now let's enter all of our numbers. So I want a for loop. You might be used to for loops starting at 0. I like to starting at 1. I like to start at 0 because it works so nicely for arrays, because the very first block is block 0. All right, semicolon. I want to keep going while I is less than 10. Must be less than 10 because 10 is just too big. So this will go from 0 to 9, which is perfectly going to go through all my blocks. There we go. Rightio. So let's ask I to get bigger by 1 each time. And now I can say nums square brackets I equals integer.parseInt. Sorry, can't type. And I want to say J option pane. Oh, I'm an idiot. No, I'm not. I just don't want it in strings. My bad. J option pane dot show input dialog. Enter number. I still wanted to say number 1, 2, 3, 4. So I could say plus I. I'm just going to run this quickly. It's not anywhere near done. I need to import javax.swing.star. I'm sure some dude somewhere is having a heart attack because I'm not saying JavaX, but whatever, I say javax. Let's just run this quickly and take a look. And this is a little bit irritating. Enter number 0. Humans don't count from 0. So let's actually cancel this. And immediately it's going to complain, look, you didn't enter anything. How am I supposed to make that a string? Don't stress about that. So instead of saying enter number I, I'm going to say I plus 1, which is, I think, not going to work. And you'll see that in action. Now I'm getting enter number 01. Okay, that's all right, maybe. Let's enter 9. Enter number 11. What? Okay, and that's because when I'm adding 1 here, it's not doing the maths. So it's working from left to right. It's got a string. You add I to it, so it turns it into a string. And then you add that 1 into the string, so it like appends it. So instead what I'm going to do is let's put brackets around here. There we go. So if I run this, I still get enter number 1, enter number 2, enter number 3. And what it's doing is it's putting it into the blocks. So ask yourself, what is the first value of I? The first value of I is 0. So the first thing it's going to be is nums 0. So it's going to put it into the first block. What's the next value of I? 1. So the next thing is going to go into nums 1, the second block. Then my next value of I is 2, and so on all the way up to 9, which it will put over here. And then as soon as I is 10, it's too big and it stops. Okay, so all this code has got my everything into memory, but you can't tell until we do something with it. Okay, and so let's actually work this out. Let's work out the total. So I'm going to do something very slightly incorrect because there's a chance you might do it, and this way you'll understand. So I want another for loop. I have gone through my for loop, I've put all the data in. And I want to go through, I've gone through my array in the for loop, I've put all the data in. And I want to go through my array, and I want to read all the data. So I can say that, let's say int sum equals sum plus nums I. And you should be familiar with this. You should be familiar with adding to sum, but for some reason it's complaining. And if I look at that, it's saying variable sum might not have been initialized. So basically, sum does not have a value. And I'm trying to say take whatever is in sum and add nums I. But it doesn't have anything in sum, so it's saying I can't do that. So you actually need to give I an initial value. This is horrendously wrong. Don't do this. Alrighty, let's do that. So then I can say sum equals sum plus I. And then let's say I want to print it out. And I can say system.out.println. The sum is. And it's immediately going to complain and say, I can't find sum. And you give me like, it's literally there. And that's because you've forgotten about scope. So a variable only lives in between the squiggly brackets that it is. There are my squiggly brackets. And that is in my, so sum only lives inside here. So if I want access to sum, I actually need to declare it before my for loop. We'll get to a second. Secondly, every single time this thing ran, it would set sum back to 0. So I'd never end up actually adding onto it. So I need to initialize sum before the loop. The way I like to do this when I'm trying to figure out where stuff goes is I like to ask myself, well, how many times do I need to set sum to 0? I only need to set sum to 0 once. So I'm going to put it before the for loop. So it only needs to happen once. Similarly, how many times do I need to print out the sum? Only once. So I'm not going to put it inside the for loop. I'm going to put it at the end. The reason I'm going to put it at the end and not before is because I don't know what the sum is until I've added them up. So let's see if this is going to work. So let's, why is this complaining? Okay, I was just clicking on the wrong place. Obviously, run file. Let's enter my numbers. I'm going to enter 1 to 10, which should be, I think, 55. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Beautiful. The sum is 45, which does mean that we've gone very, very slightly wrong. Okay, you know what? I've made the dumbest mistake, and well done to you if you've spotted that. And you know what? I'm talking and thinking at the same time, and it's really good for you to see that mistakes happen. Let's do another test. I know exactly where it is. Let's do another test. Let's say I'm going to add 10 100s. That should be 1,000. That is weird. Still getting 45. And the reason for that is because I'm adding I, which is just literally adding 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is why I got 45 and not 55. But in reality, I want to add the array. So I want to add nums I. Okay, so now if I do this, this should work nicely. 1, boom, this time is 55. Let's do one more test because you might not believe me after I messed that up. So I'm going to enter 100 10 times, so that should give me 1,000. Boom, 1,000. Cool, so my sum seems to be working out nicely. I don't really want to print the sum, I just want to work out the average. Let's go double average equals sum divided by 10. Okay, and then let's make it 10.0, so it does real division instead of integer division. And then let's print out the average is plus AVG. Let's test that again. Let's see if that's working nicely. So first stupid test, let's just do 20. The average is 20, makes perfect sense, but maybe it just worked because I've typed every number in the same, so let's just try some other random ones. So let's try 4, 6, 8, 1, 5, 4, 3, 3, 3, 1. The average is 3.8. I know this code works, but you could always haul out a calculator, test addition, and see if the average is working fine. So now what I want to do is I want to display all the numbers that are above average. Let's give ourselves a little bit of a heading. Above average numbers. And I can say another for loop, because again, I need to go through all of the variables in order to see which one of those are bigger than the average. So a little for loop, and I can say if nums I is greater than AVG, then system.out.print. Let's put each one on a new line, and then let's just print nums I. Righty, and if I try some random numbers again, so let's say I've got 10, 20, 15, 16, 14, 19, 45, 32, 18, and 21. The average is 21, and you can see I've put all the numbers that are above 21 in. I've printed them all out. You could test it more robustly, so you could go over here and you could enter 10 numbers. Apologies. That is 10 numbers. Average, I can work out the average. The average is 21.3, so I'm expecting to print 31, 45, and 74. Let's maybe let's just do a test like this, just to show you it's important to test your code thoroughly. So let's run it. And this is going to drive me insane because I think each time I click on it, I'm going to lose X. No, I'm not. Oh, beautiful. First number is 1, 4, 5, 8, 9, 31, 45, 21, 74, 15. Hoping to see average of 21.3. Beautiful. It's printed all three above average numbers. And got that. Only thing I'm wondering is, I'm an idiot. I was wondering why 21 wasn't printing, but 21 is not bigger than 21.3. Okay, so this was an introduction to arrays. Hopefully you now have some idea of what arrays are and how we can use them.